Mystery, so welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be doing a book review, which I don't do very much, but for this book I really want to talk about it because I think many people have read it and many are kind of thinking about reading it right now because the movie It just came out, and the book is obviously something that then is on everybody's mind, and I kind of just like want to do this review to maybe kind of give you an insight into the book and my thoughts, and kind of like give you a little bit of a guide in terms of like, should you read it or should you not read it? Should you just like skip to the movie or something like that? Obviously, I kind of already said it now, but I'm talking about It by Stephen King. So this book has 1,300 pages, at least in this edition, which is the movie edition, by the way, which I quite like. So that's a very large amount of pages and content. So obviously I think it would be helpful to some to kind of decide if they should take the plunge and do it or just skip the book. So this book is set in the town of Derry, Maine, in both the years 1958 and 1985. And we follow the same group of like 7 kids, and in 1958 they're obviously kind of around 10 years old, and then when they're like 30 years later, when they're adults, the story kind of comes back. And we kind of jump between those two perspectives a lot throughout the book, as we try to figure out what happens here. Basically, the town of Derry has the problem that people, especially kids, are disappearing and getting killed, and the book starts actually off with Bill, one of the 7 kids' brother Georgie, being murdered when he's about 8 years old, and that kind of sets us up for the entire story and kind of gives Bill a reason to be kind of very much involved in the events. So the story in 1958 follows the kids as they kind of come together, meet, try to figure out what's happening, and make an attempt at killing It, which they find out is a clown that is killing people, which is not a spoiler, obviously. I think everybody knows that part. And then they kind of split up and disperse. And then in 1985, they get a call from Mike, one of their group, the only one who's actually stayed in Derry, and he tells them that It is back, and they need to come back to try and finally kill it once and for all. That is kind of the very basis of the synopsis, and it is, you know, so much more is being revealed throughout the book, and it just goes crazy. It's really hard to sum up a book like that, but I don't want to spoil anything either, so I think that that's a good place to leave it at. So the 7 kids consist of Bill, Eddie, Richie, Ben, Stan, who am I forgetting? Beverly, the only girl, and Mike, obviously. And we get a lot of backstory on each of them. They all have kind of difficult lives for one reason or another, and they kind of meet up, hang out, and become really good friends. And then there's also a group of kids around Henry Bowers who are like the mean kids. They kind of mistreat all of them, and they all kind of have their own issues with him, so they kind of have him as a common enemy, and then that's how they kind of bond with each other. As for my thoughts on the book overall, I really enjoyed myself reading it because I constantly had this sense of dread throughout the book. I was kept on my toes, really, because I kept wanting to know more, like know more about what's happening. Because we got so much backstory on all of the characters, I felt really involved, I felt really attached to all of them, except for the fact that at the beginning you kind of get like thrown in at the deep end a little bit with all of them, and then it's hard to remember their names and like exactly what happened to them. Or exactly like which backstory corresponds with whom, because obviously you still need to like create images of them in your mind, and like it's hard to connect them at times. Besides that, I thought that was really well done, and I really enjoyed that we got to know them so well. I also really liked the friendship that developed between them because it seemed kind of organic and kind of like in a typical children's way, which is just like, oh, come and play, and then you're instantly best friends. And it just made me happy to read about that because I remember that from my childhood, and I think it's one of the best parts of being a kid is how easily you can make friends, and that was like really like well described in this book and like really well set in scene, so I really enjoyed myself there. I also really enjoyed the writing style. I think Stephen King writes wonderfully, and I especially like the times when he would, I'm not sure how to explain this, but he would just like start a sentence and then in the middle of it he would put something in like brackets that maybe like when it was concerning like the inner monologue of one of the characters, like, you know, when it happens to your brain, like you think of something and then your brain like does its own thing and like thinks of something else, but it's not a pleasant thought, so you like actively steer it back to what you were thinking about. That kind of is what the sense I got from this type of writing, when it was in brackets, and then the sentence would just continue as like, you know, they were restraining themselves from thinking about that thing because it's too bad and too like daunting to do, so they're like forcing themselves, but also the thoughts can't be helped completely, like they kind of creep in again, like the negative ones are like the ones that you'd rather like not think about. And I really like that, because again it kind of adds more realism to these characters and makes them more believable and like more easy for you to be sympathetic towards them. I also quite liked how the story was structured, kind of jumping back and forth between the past and the present of 1985, and most of the time at the end of each timeline you would want more of it. And I think that's something that if it's done well and like it happens with each timeline, like not one of the two was like more interesting than the other. I think both were done really well and balanced out quite well. So I thought overall like it was just an enjoyable time reading it, and it flowed quite nicely. My gripes with it were kind of more content based, because there's a lot of developments that I think didn't really make sense. There's some scenes that I think are outright scandalous and ridiculous and completely out of the blue that didn't need to be there. But I will talk about them later when I get a little bit more into spoilery territory. But for now I want to focus on like spoiler-free content, so like really people who haven't read it yet can decide if they want to. Especially towards the ending, because I think that, you know, you're kind of going along this journey with these people and you're trying to figure out what is going on in Derry and what's happening with this clown, and then you find out, and it's done in it's such an abstract thing in a way, and it's like it's done in such a barely concrete sense that I think it was very unsatisfying. I also didn't like how the kids always seem to like just know what they were supposed to do next, which I understand is a part of it, but I feel like it's such a lazy storytelling device and I don't particularly like it in general. And in this book particularly, I was like, it just seemed like a way out and I didn't really like it. And while I said earlier that I didn't do their friendship, I didn't think that their relationships with each other in general towards the end again made a lot of sense. I think that there were some developments that again came completely out of the blue, that were very different and difficult to comprehend, and also them as adults, the dynamic between them was just very weird and didn't seem natural and organic again. Like the beginning half I would say is really, it really makes sense. Like you're seeing them as friends, and then later it's just, it becomes something else, and it's just really weird, basically, is what I'm trying to say. But I've said that word a lot, so I was trying to think of a different one, but I couldn't. So I think if you haven't read this book yet and you're looking for something that's eerie, that fills you with a sense of dread, that's not necessarily horror, that's gonna haunt you and like keep you up at night, that doesn't have any like jump scares, even though that's not really a thing in books anyway, but nothing that's like really terrifying unless you're really scared of clowns to begin with, I would say still pick this book up, because it really does manage to pull you into the world, give you a complete overview of everything that's going on, of all of the characters. You go so in depth with all of them, and they're really fascinating, and like their backstories are really unique and really interesting. And if you want to read about that, I definitely think it is worth working your way through this. But if you're looking for like a real horror book, one that's really scary, one that has like a revolutionary ending, then maybe I would say skip it for now. Maybe just give it a go, try it out, give it a few hundred pages, see if you feel like it, see if you can get into the characters and into their story, and then kind of focus more on that than on the horror aspect. Then I think this is still a really good book and still worth reading, just not for the reasons that I think many people would read it for, especially if you're someone who's very conclusion oriented, which is what I typically am. Like I really want to know what's going on exactly, I want a like plot twist that's like mind-blowing and all that stuff. Then this is maybe not the book for you. I ended up giving it 3 stars, by the way, because of sort of my overall feel when I read the book. Again, while reading I really enjoyed myself, but then the ending was too disappointing to give it any higher of a rating than that. So that is it for the spoiler-free portion of this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it and found it interesting. Definitely let me know in the comments down below if you're gonna be picking up this book or not, and if you have read this book already, then just keep on watching for my spoilery thoughts. Okay, let's get into this discussion. I hope everybody who hasn't read the book yet is leaving right now because this is dangerous territory. Okay. Obviously, we're gonna get the elephant in the room out of the way first. Why on earth is there a gang bang scene between prepubescent people in this book? It came out of completely nowhere. It was not explained. It didn't make sense. I feel like in the book it's kind of made out to be as if like love and desire are like the reason why they like can't get out of there, but then that doesn't seem to have been a factor before that very scene, and it just seems to have been like artificially created as a theme just so the scene would make somewhat sense. I don't know. Another thing I really kind of didn't like was how unclear it was what exactly made the kids so special, or like why exactly they were able to defeat the clown. It kind of seems like there's like one time when the clown says something about like they're only half believers. They don't believe fully yet, they're only half believers, but to you, I think he's talking to Henry at this time, saying like it doesn't matter to him how much they believe because he's a human, he can just kill them, so he tells them to do it. But it kind of comes across as if like, okay, so if they're full believers, then the clown can kill them, like they can beat him. So that makes sense, right? Because the children believe in fairy tales, they believe a lot of things, they're not very they don't question things the way that adults do, they don't rationalize things the same way, so it kind of makes sense to be like, okay, because they believe they can beat him, but then constantly, especially in the movie, I want to say in the old movie, they keep saying like, don't believe it's not real, like don't believe it's not real, what he's doing is just an illusion. And then there's even one part in the book where they're like walking in this house and the house starts to change and like grows really tall, the rooms grow really tall, and I think Stan says, no, look, it's not real, or Bill, I don't know who says it, but again, this is like, again, the theme of like, oh, it's not real. So I'm like, what is exactly the thing to do here? Like, which one exactly is keeping them safe or like protecting them? Is it the not believing, like telling themselves to not believe the illusions that he draws up, or is it the believing because they're children? So for me that didn't make sense, and I feel like it should have been made clearer, and the old movie tries to kind of make it clearer in a way and concentrate more on the like not believing aspect than on the believing, even though the line about half believing is still in the movie, I believe. I also didn't like this aspect of like, oh, there's this higher power that's guiding them. So kind of, it made it seem like it didn't even have to be them. It could have been like any random kid, didn't matter who. Which, I'm not a fan of the chosen one trope either, but I would have liked some reason for why exactly these kids. And it didn't like come across, at least maybe it did and I forgot. But as far as I can remember, there was no particular reason why it was them over any other children. And then also the resolution of them killing it, I would have liked just like a clearer sense of what the fuck this it now actually is, instead of just like a presence and like a thing, a light that's on this plane and also on the other plane, and there's this huge other thing above good and evil. Like, what is it? Is it the devil? But like it did seem like it was kind of, it wasn't spelled out in such a way, but like it did seem like it was the evil in the world, right? And then it had the ability to pull them across the border. Like, it didn't make sense. And then there's also the tagline of we all float down here, and a lot of times it comes across like they're not really dead. Like, I would have liked that to be explored a little bit more. Like, how float? Is it really just the balloons? I thought maybe that was like a metaphor for something. Like, they actually, like the souls are trapped down there or something, like nothing of the kind, and that feels so unsatisfying, because there were so many, like, that all seems so superfluous then. Like, then why did you do all that stuff, or say all that stuff, if it didn't lead to anything, and then the conclusion was just like, oh, right, now we're done, and that's it. You beat the evil in the world? Like, why? How? And also, why dairy? I didn't, if it is the whole evil in the world, like the evil being, and you literally just killed that, like, first of all, why was it only in Derry then? Why is it possible to kill the evil in the world? Like, how exactly did it influence people? Like, I wanted to know all the intricacies behind the setup, and like, it just didn't deliver for me at all. It was like, just go with it. Kind of expected what I said earlier about like the kids just knowing what to do and like believing whatever and like not questioning things, which I also don't really like. Is kind of the same, like he expects that of the reader as well. Like he wants you to just like go with it, just like read his explanation and be like, oh, we're not gonna touch on that anymore, it's just gonna stay abstract, it's just this thing, like this power, this light, whatever, and you're just gonna have to believe it, and there's not gonna be a better conclusion than that. And while I get that that might have been the purpose, I am not the kind of reader for that. I don't like that. I want it clearer. I want more information. I just wanted more. I wanted more of what he had envisioned for this world, because you cannot tell me that you wrote a book 1,300 pages and didn't think exactly what is going on there. I think he must know, right? He must know. He just refuses to tell us, and that is so annoying to me. Anyway, I think this review is already way too long. I've talked for so fucking long now, but I had so many thoughts and feelings. I am kind of glad that I read the book, because there was like so many people were talking about it, and now I know what they're talking about. Also when they said the scene at the end, which is obviously the gangbang that like everybody I think is like a little bit what about. But yeah, I think it does have its strong sides, but I don't get why people hype it up so much as a book. And it's the first book I read by Stephen King, so I can't speak to him as an author, but I hope that his other books are different and give more of a conclusion, because I can't with the conclusions. It's like, it's just not who I am, and if it doesn't bother you, then all more power to you. Obviously a lot of people seem to really love the book, and I think that there will be like reasons for that, but I just like, it just under-delivered for me on so many levels. And I hope the other books are better. That's all I can say. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments down below what you thought, but please be aware that other people will be reading the comments too, so maybe don't put any like outright spoilers in there. You can always message me, direct message me on Twitter, or like tweet me, or send me an email or something if you want to discuss it further, because I would love to do that. I love talking about books in like a spoilery fashion with people, because when they've read them too, like, it's so fun. Let's do that, okay? Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I will see you very soon with another one. Come back, and don't forget to like, subscribe, all the good stuff. I will see you then. Have a lovely week. Bye!